Welcome back to the It's Just Sport podcast, A League of Her Own. I'm Joanna Reardon.
I'm Neve, and we're delighted to welcome today's guest, Dublin Camogie Manager and Women's Hurling founder, Adrian O'Sullivan. Congratulations are in order. You have been appointed to your new role with Dublin, and you have also recently picked up a Camogie Association Media Award for Best Media Innovation. So you're obviously doing really well in all of those things. How is the day job going?
Yeah, it's going well. I think a lot of people are saying we didn't have too much competition to pick up the Camogie Award, so that's a fair point as well. So look, it's nice to get it, I suppose, a bit of recognition, but it's not really what we set out to achieve, really, to be honest with you. But look, it's great to get it. Day job going well, it's busy. We're lucky to be in the medical industry, I suppose, so look, it's just a busy time for everybody as well. But yeah, look, probably a hectic couple of years coming up now. But, my boss isn't a big GA man now, so he's going to have to understand the day-to-day implications of managing a county team, as well as trying to keep the day job on track as well. So yeah, so far so good anyway.
What possessed, well, not possessed you, that sounds mean, but what, were the reasons why you set up the women's hurling page? Like, were you frustrated at the lack of info being out there for games? Because I see it myself, like if I'm looking for like stats on like Amy O'Connor scoring and things like that, like I have to delve into like the underworld. So was it that reason, or kind of
no, not so much really, Joanne, to be honest. It was more I suppose from just being involved with really high level players in UL, and just I suppose a bit of frustration about the lack of coverage they got. It was more to provide them with a platform really, as opposed to any kind of stats oriented goal or anything. That's your job as journalists to provide those stats, you know. But yeah, no, it was very much a player oriented thing. I think anybody who's followed it over the last year would probably have seen that as well, that it was very much about for the players, about the players. So I think we achieved that, which was great. Yeah, look, it's great to pick up the award from the Camogie Association, that, but I think like the feedback you get from the players is much more important, you know. Like we got massive feedback from them all year, and so I think like Chloe Sigerson told us that our show became like the Sunday game in their house, you know. So like for a player like you know, I think that was when myself and Davey were just kind of going, yeah, we've achieved what we set out to achieve here. It's like, you know, the top players like Chloe Sigerson, they're standing around on a Monday evening waiting to hear the show and see what's been said about all the different games and stuff like that. So yeah, from that point of view, it definitely hit the right tone for us, you know.
Yeah, like this series, I suppose, is what we call a league of our own. And I think the idea, like that you had just said earlier, is similar to us. Like we wanted to give a platform to these like really incredible athletes who are achieving so much, like across Irish, both domestic and international. You obviously see on a day-to-day basis like the caliber needed in order to be an athlete in camogie. So obviously you've done an incredible, like your CV is massive, and kudos to you. What are you hoping to kind of bring to the Dublin role? I've seen you kind of announce your backroom team, and it's good. Like, I mean, it's nice to get hyped. Like,
yeah, it is, I suppose. But look, it's kind of like anything really. So the first couple of weeks in the job, you know, everybody's coming out and, you know, congratulating you for getting the role and shaking your hand and wishing you the best of luck and all that. But then I suppose that doesn't really matter. So I don't think anybody gets into sport to be congratulated for getting a job. You know, it's about getting out in the field and trying to achieve something as a group. I don't know, I suppose, what are we trying to bring to it? Look, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. I don't really like kind of discussing these things in public, really. I think, like just I said before, like the sanctity of a dressing room is very special, you know. And it's, I suppose, when you have a group of people that are all trying to achieve the same goals and hit the same benchmarks and stuff like that, it's a really special thing. I don't think it's really something you can put out in the public domain, you know. Look, we're a very experienced backroom team. Obviously, I suppose the big name on it would be Ray Boyne. I suppose is probably the one that's probably stood out to a lot of people. Like Ray has worked with Jim Gavin, won a couple of Football All-Irelands there, went down to Tipperary, won with Liam Sheedy as well. So, I've been getting a few smart comments saying his career must be going off a cliff. He's on a downward trajectory coming in with me. But Ray bringing massive experience already from an analysis point of view, just from an experience point of view, mentorship and stuff like that. So really looking forward to working with him. We really go back on team, but it doesn't win anything. You know, we're just really looking forward to getting in with the group and working with them and just helping them unlock their talents, you know, and just see where we can go with it for the next few years, you know.
You've worked with a couple of different teams, and obviously you've moved around a bit. In relation to when the job came up, was it an easy decision to say yes, or did it take a bit of mulling over?
No, it was very much an easy decision, yeah, to be honest with you. Like there had been a few different roles kind of mooted around the place. I had actually accepted a little coaching role, kind of a background role at one of the other county teams. So their manager was very understanding that look, it was just too big an opportunity to turn down. Didn't have to think twice about it really. Like I suppose we've competed with DCU, UCD in the past, DIT as well at colleges level, and I suppose at club level you'd be very aware of what St. Vincent, St. Jude's have done coming into Leinster and stuff like that. So look, when the opportunity arose, it didn't take much thinking about, to be honest. It was a pretty easy decision, yeah.
Obviously you've been involved with UL for a couple of years. Will you have time to work with any other teams, even if it's a matter of just kind of going down the odd time, or are you going to have to fully step back from everything else you've been involved in?
No, it's everything else will go by the wayside here now for the next little while. It's too big a task, I suppose it wouldn't be fair on the players, and it wouldn't be fair on myself not to give it my full attention, even just, I suppose, he's going down to a club once a week to help him out. Is it that big a deal really in the general scheme of things? No, but I suppose what I've found already as the manager of a county team is most of your work is done away from the training pitch. It's the coaches are doing a bit off the field, but then primarily on the pitch, and I suppose all the organisation and admin and all that lovely stuff is left to outside of the training hours. So it's just too much, Look, by the time September rolls around, if Thomastown will have me back, I'll go down and do a few sessions with him again. We'll try to see if we can defend our title down in Kilkenny, but no, everything else will be parked now, and we'll give it our full attention and energy now for the next couple of years.
Can you just give us a brief insight into what it takes to manage either both UL or an inter-county team? Like what are the commitment, like you're saying about time and planning and different things like that? Like what are your, I suppose, ways that you kind of manage a team?
No, you just have to be wicked organised, really, really organised. That's the key to it, really. With UL, it's not too bad, I suppose. We don't actually train that much. It's probably, there might be a perception out there that it's this big kind of relentless machine, but we don't do that much really. By the time we go back to college, a lot of the players are finished a long county season. They're probably still playing with their clubs and things like that. So we just try and just let them have as much enjoyment as possible. A lot of the times we get together nearly more from a social benefit more than anything like that. They just like being together, like hanging around. We do very light sessions and stuff like that. So, and it's only down the road as well. So you're talking maybe once, twice a week there, maybe a training session in a league game or something like that. And then it's quite a short season as well. So it's not very taxing. Obviously, I've only just started with Dublin, but I suppose my inter-county experience so far, it's pretty full on. You're talking 3-4 sessions a week. Obviously, if you're managing a team that isn't your own county, you've all the travelling factored into it as well. And then you've all the organisational stuff and things like that. And it's really like having I suppose, not quite a second full-time job, but definitely a part-time job on the side. You're talking maybe up to 20 hours a week by the time you factor in everything. So it looks very glamorous, and the rewards are great, and you get some really great days out of it. But aside from that odd day in Croke Park or the odd day in the sunshine, there's a hell of amount of hard work goes into it from everybody that's involved in an inter-county management team. Right from if you take our physiotherapist, for example, like Fiona, she has a full-time job as a physiotherapist as well as being physio for a county team. Our coach Donny is a full-time physiotherapist, athletic development coach, as well as being involved in the team. Ray has a full-time job in building social housing. Everybody involved has full-time jobs and are putting in this massive commitment as well, which it makes it very, very special because everybody's making huge sacrifices to try and achieve something. No more so than the players, we have doctors, nurses, teachers, everything that are flat out, guards doing shift work, everything like that, and everybody's making massive sacrifices to be there. So yeah, I think it's a really special thing when you get a group of people, of players and management that are willing to make that sacrifice and drive on. It's a great dynamic, and it's something really nice to be part of.
I think.
And has COVID anyway? Sorry, I'll finish after this, I promise. Has COVID in any way, basically, how are you doing those sessions now? Because I suppose before you would have been doing them face to face, Tuesday, Thursday night, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So now is it just through Zoom? And is that kind of weird for you because you might be able to actually?
I hate Zoom. Zoom is just this idea of getting 30 people on a Zoom call and doing a training session is just not my thing at all. I'm lucky Donny's a bit of a whiz kid. He's a bit of a tech guy, so we use a thing called Team Builder. So it's just a little app that the players have on their phone, and their training sessions get uploaded to it every morning, and they can just go away and do them in their own time then. So it's all designed to be done with or without equipment, depending on what you have. So we've just left them off to do their own thing. I think it is a bit strange in that we've taken on the role and we haven't had much contact with the players yet. Usually in a role like that, we might have 5 or 6 sessions done already, and you're getting to know people and you're kind of getting a feel for the group and stuff like that. But I think we've gambled on the fact that we'd be mentally a little bit fresher by the time we get out in the field by not dragging people onto 2 and 3 Zoom calls a week and doing sessions on Zoom. It's just not our thing. So I'm not saying that's the right thing. That's just our thing, And I know there's other teams out there that are flat out on Zoom and training and stuff. And look, I'm sure there's benefits to that as well, but it's just not the way we want to go about it at the moment,
It's hard. Look, everybody in every sport has been on Zoom at some point in the last, I guess, a year, to be honest. It's not where people want to be, and it's the novelty is certainly worn off. So trying to get people to kind of do things in their own time and stuff, it's not going to go against you anyways. If you have the commitment from people, and obviously you do at intercounty level, like, people are not there to be joking around. Look, you've coached men and women. As you are in your role with the camogie team now, are you going to take a different strategy when you coach a women's team?
No, not particularly, no. I think there is a bit of a perception, or I don't know, I suppose maybe a lazy generalization or stereotype out there that there's a huge difference between coaching men and women. And you'll often hear managers say, so you can say X to a man, but you can't say it to a woman. And it's like, well, if you're not willing to say it to a woman, you shouldn't be saying it to a man either. I think, like, if you're not articulate enough to be able to communicate your point without swearing or roaring, it shouldn't really matter what the gender is, really. But like, my big thing is that I think there's no difference. It's not that you can say there's a difference between males and females. There's a difference between elite athletes and non-elite athletes. I think that's the big difference. It's not a difference in gender. I think, like, elite athletes, they have a different mindset. They have a different discipline. There's a difference in their game sense. There's a difference in their coachability. I think there's kind of an old cliche out there that an average player wants to be told what they're doing well, and a great player wants to be told what they can do better. And I think that kind of sums it up, really. So I think it's really a difference between elite and non-elite as opposed to male and female. I've always believed, really.
Yeah, that's interesting. I guess look, if people are willing to get to that level, they're not joking around. Obviously you've kind of coached at different levels, so I don't know whether you've noticed any other points, but I know Phil Healy's coach mentioned before that he finds when coaching female athletes sometimes that they can be a bit more like follow everything like literally to a T and like do exactly as they're instructed, where sometimes you don't always get that with men, whether it's focus or not, I don't know. And look, maybe it's different at top level versus when you working down the levels, if you can get people to focus or not.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's the difference between elite and non-elite. I'd love to sit down and have a chat with him. I'd like to argue that, like, I never want a player who does exactly what they're told. Like, I think, like, the elite players will push back on their coaches and question them, and challenge them. Like, I suppose, like, I've been lucky that I've coached at a high level across hurling and camogie. And, like, I suppose if you'd ask it there, like, who are the best players I've coached, you'd probably go Megan Farrell, David Reedy, Niamh Hannafy, maybe Angus Clark, Beth Carton, Danny Russell, these kind of guys. And, like, the thing, they all have common traits. And, like, one of them is that they will be very challenging. So I would have found them challenging to deal with as a coach, not from a personality point of view, but that they'd ask really hard questions. And, like, my very first day down to Thomastown, when Megan Farrell asked me a question that absolutely stumped me. It was the very first thing down in Thomastown. I was like, oh, wow. Okay, I'll have to come back to you on that one. But you love it, and that's what makes them the players that they are. So I don't know, this thing, I think it's a bit of a lazy stereotype. Are females more focused than males? I don't know, try telling that to Gerard Hegarty or Keane Lynch or any of these guys. I don't know, it's a bit lazy. And look, maybe sometimes when coaches are talking about female sports, I think there's nearly an onus to kind of go, because there's such a negative stereotype sometimes in the mainstream media against female sports, that I don't know, that sometimes the coaches of female players try and put out a positive generalization, say, oh yeah, females are more focused than males. And it's like, I don't know, I don't think that's really fair. I think, again, it comes down to the elite versus non-elite argument. It's like, elite players are more focused than non-elite players. I don't think the gender makes any difference, really, to be honest. But that's just my opinion. Obviously this guy's an international coach of some description, so he obviously knows what he's doing. So everybody's different, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the beauty of
And
it.
look, it's obviously whoever he's coached as well, you know, not taking away from the male athletes that he's worked with necessarily, but it's just it's not specifically him. Like, it's something that's come up a couple of times, and maybe there just is maybe people have experience and attention with, say, international female athletes, that they have to push so much more to kind of get the recognition that men do. So maybe it's something along those lines, you know.
Yeah.
So in relation to sport growing up, you have a sister.
Yeah.
Did you notice the disparity in sport as you grew up?
Yeah, she was useless and I wasn't.
Yeah, wait.
No offense, Michelle.
Wait until we send her this link. She'd be human.
No, not really. I suppose, look, came from a rural area, so we were used to the girls just playing with us. Like, you know, I don't think there was. Trying to think now, was there a girls team in the parish? There probably wasn't. I think up to under 16, even at that time, they would have just played in the same teams as us, so it wasn't really something that we noticed. But obviously, I suppose, I don't know. Like, I remember, like, Eda Trant would have played with us now. She was like incredibly skillful hurler. Dipno O'Brien, the all-star footballer, would have played in the school team and stuff like that. So I don't know. I don't know that I really take any notice whether it was just because we're from a rural area and there wasn't that many girls playing, or whether it was a case that the facilities or that the teams weren't there for them. I suppose it was probably a combination of both things, maybe, to be fair. But no, it's not something would have taken any notice of. Like Jared Griffin's would have been a really strong ladies football team when we were growing up, and I suppose like the whole area would have got behind them and supported them. They won Club Ireland and stuff like that. At a time when Limerick hurling was quite weak, Granada Ballingarry were the Ireland Club Camogie champions, and they would have got a huge amount of support from around the locality and stuff like that as well. So I don't know, I suppose maybe we've been just lucky where we're from, that we've kind of always had female teams that have been positive role models in the community. So look, I've no doubt there was, of course there was, you can only presume there was a difference in what was available for females and males growing up. But I suppose to put that in context, we never played soccer until we were 16. We didn't have a team. So you're talking rural West Limerick, like, so it's probably not the best example to say. There was nothing available to the lads either, as well as the girls. So yeah. But Michelle was useless. She was more academic. She was the smart one in the family. Who played the piano and stuff. But sports, and my 3 nephews and 3 sons are all absolute sports mad. So they obviously got that from the rest of us, and not Michelle.
Yeah. No, it's just interesting because like there'd be a lot of comments about Gaelic games and about women playing sack and fiddle. And then like I know obviously you've been coaching in the women's game. What do you make of the comments from people that say the standard of women's sport is poor?
Yeah, I suppose it's put into context, really, isn't it? You know, it's like anything. Like if I watch soccer, I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't particularly enjoy it. You know, the standard poor. I don't know. I suppose it depends what you're comparing it against. Like I suppose if you're comparing camogie and hurling, like they're very different games. You know, like we spoke about differences there between males and females, and like I think from a mentality, commitment, that kind of thing, there's no difference. But from a physical point of view, there's obvious differences, you know, and you only have to look at the Olympics to that. I mean, the 100 meters sprinter in the Olympics in the men's is going to be faster than the 100 meters in the women's, and you know, in the weightlifting, the men are stronger than the women, and just so there's that little bit more, I suppose, of a physical difference in the game. So just hurling is that little bit faster, it's that little bit more physical, and maybe it lends itself to being a better spectacle. Then I suppose the counter argument to that is, I suppose, like ladies football is far more entertaining to watch than men's football at the moment. So I don't know, it depends what you're into. I suppose like you're always going to have these trolls out there online that just you know, I suppose maybe feel threatened by strong women, and if it's you know, if they get an opportunity to stick the boot in, they will. But is that really the audience you're aiming for? Not really, you know. I wouldn't take too much notice of it, to be fair. I think like from a coaching point of view, I suppose there would have been maybe a perception maybe 10 or 12 years ago that if you didn't want to be pigeonholed as a camogie coach or a camogie manager. But I think there's a lot more coaches have kind of flittered between the two now lately. Liam Cronin was coaching Cork last year, and he would have coached the Clare senior hurlers for the 2 previous years before that. So like that was a huge thing, that he went straight from coaching senior intercounty hurling to coaching senior intercounty camogie. Paddy Mullally, just after taking over as the Carlow coach, his previous experiences with WIT and Kilkenny and the Camogie, and Tommy Shefflin managed or coached Ballyhale Shamrocks to win the Club All-Ireland in the hurling, and coach Kilkenny to win the All-Ireland in December there, and is the manager of WIT in the Camogie. So it's becoming far more common now to have a crossover. So I think slowly but surely people are realising that there isn't a huge difference amongst it. But yeah, I wouldn't really take too much notice. Go back to your original question. People say it's poor. It's just what it's all. It's it's whatever your preference is, I suppose.
Do you kind of it came up kind of recently in soccer, especially over in England? Emma Hayes, who's the Chelsea women's manager, was asked would she manage a men's team, and she basically went down a tangent about there's no difference. For me, being an elite club in the women's team, as in chasing European leagues and things like that, I'm not going to go down to AFC Wimbledon, who are only chasing promotion and fighting relegation and things like that. Was there ever, and you kind of briefly touched on it, was that ever a thing where you would have had a coach in camogie or maybe ladies football, but their end goal may not have been to win an All-Ireland? It was more to propel themselves into joining a men's team.
Yeah, I'm sure. Look, I'm sure it does exist. It's an unusual route to go. I think if you're going to go that route, you have to win in the camogie. I think that's, I suppose, the profile of the game probably isn't big enough that you could just operate at a lower level and then make the jump. And that's just the nature of sport. It's, if you go into an interview for a job, they're going to look at what you've won first and foremost. It's very difficult in a 30 or 40-minute interview to put across what your coaching ethos is, or how you're going to develop players, or anything like this. A lot of it just comes down to, listen, he's won this and that guy hasn't, or whatever. I suppose it's an interesting point Emma Hayes made. I know Joe Quaid is always adamant that there's no better preparation for managing in senior intercounty hurling than managing in senior intercounty camogie, because it's so much different. If you're managing an under 21 county team or under 20 as it is now, or minor, it's a completely different competition than what you see in senior hurling. You're not dealing with a split season, whether between league and championship. You don't have as many teams pulling out the players. You're not dealing with the egos, the politics, county boards as much. Whereas the senior county camogie is practically an exact replica of senior county hurling from a preparation point of view, with the organisation levels, with the planning, and when everything goes on in the background. So I think Emma has a point there. That maybe she wouldn't go down through the leagues. I suppose the other thing is that it's specific to football, is they kind of very much either go for the ex-player that has done it at a really high level, or they've gone for someone that has proven themselves as a coach in the lower levels. So you kind of, in professional football in the UK, you have to do one or the other. But I'm sure someday they will take, not a punt, I suppose is being a bit facetious, but they will give an opportunity to someone who's proven themselves in the women's game to go straight across at the exact same level in the men's game. But it hasn't quite happened in the camogie yet either. I suppose David Herity went from managing Dublin to managing the Kildare Hurlers, which would be kind of a level down, or 2 levels down. Shane O'Brien went from managing Dublin to managing Westmeath, which would be a level down as well. Tony Ward went from managing Galway to managing the Galway under 21 hurlers. JJ Doyle the same. So yeah, camogie hasn't quite reached the level either yet where you can just jump straight from a top camogie team straight across to a top hurling team. You kind of do have to go down a level or two, but yeah, maybe someday.
We should have given you a warning that Joanne's a big football fan.
Yeah.
she'll have all the soccer comparisons for you. I should have given you that heads up before.
Yeah.
I just found it really interesting, the way, it's probably more so in soccer than it will be in GA. I find anyways, just kind of the amount of people who would kind of disregard. So I was just kind of interested to see what your thoughts were on you can manage a top senior intercounty women's team. So where would you put that? Where would you go then afterwards if you were to go into the men's? Because I know Peter Lee, he did it there with ladies football. Efi's done it. Eamon Ryan had done it. So yeah, no, that's all I was curious about.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, but there is obviously, there's differences then in that. I suppose I think the quality, just from a numbers point of view, the quality of managers that you come across is better or more consistent at top level hurling. I suppose it's just a bit different. There's still maybe teams in camogie down through the levels where maybe the management setups aren't great and stuff like that. And whereas that's very rare in hurling. Like to give you an example, like I suppose when we were with Kildare first year in the hurling, like we played Carlow, Cormac Bonner as or Cullen Bonner as their manager. We played Westmeath, who had Micheál Ryan. We played Antrim, who had Dominic McKinley, and these guys, all really experienced managers. You go down to the club scene in Offaly where I was last year, coming up against the likes of Ken Hogan, and like this year Ollie Baker and Brendan Bugler, and these guys are involved at club levels, so like I think it's just a pure numbers game, that there's more quality people involved in hurling. So as you go down the levels, it's harder. So I think teams are probably more willing to take a chance on someone who's proven themselves up through the levels, maybe someone like an Eddie Brennan or someone like that, as opposed to maybe coming up through the levels in camogie. But maybe in time that'll change as well. But I think at the moment, if you're still going to have to make the switch down through the levels. Yeah.
I think things are changing. Like obviously we're seeing more people, watching the game and that kind of thing. So like, I think everything is starting to push forward, which I guess brings on to women's hurling, which is true. We have a few questions about this as well. So what can we expect, first of all, for women's hurling in 2021? We've had great feedback in 2020 and have definitely put your stamp on it.
Yeah, I'd say what we can expect is that Davey will take every chance he can to stick the boot into the tubs, I'd say, after the slagging we gave him last year. Look, my involvement in it is finished, obviously, because look, you can't do both. You can't have a foot in both camps. It just wouldn't be right, really. So I know Davey. Look, it was myself and Davey set it up, so I just handed it over to him, and he's going to go and take it in whatever direction he sees fit, as well. So look, he's a very smart guy, and he's really had a draw for the camogie, for the last couple of years, and look, he's from a marketing background and stuff like that. So I know he has big plans to drive it on as well. So I'm on the other side of the fence now, so I'll be tuning in every Monday evening to see what he's saying, and I'll be able to give him a few strongly worded texts, the same as what we used to get from the managers the odd Tuesday morning. So I'm looking forward to having the shoe on the other foot now, and be able to stick it to him. But look, it is going to continue. Hopefully it'll get bigger. We got great support from the players. Got great support from other people in the media, like Sakina Foley, Marie Crowe, Jackie Hurley, Evanny Quillen. They were all really so supportive of it as well, which is a massive help, which is unexpected, really, because I suppose not that you're competing with RTE, but they're kind of, I suppose, on the other side of the fence. So they didn't have to do it. It was just such a nice thing to do. Look, I'd say more of the same, hopefully. But it's not my baby this year. So we'll leave it over to Davey. No pressure. See if we can put another award on the table.
Obviously, the media coverage and stuff is helping. I think sometimes we see in women's sports, particularly women's team sports, that analysis isn't there, which is something that you guys brought, I think, to camogie. What else do you think needs to happen in camogie to bring more viewers and to increase participation of the game?
That's a good question. I suppose, go back to Davey, his thing always was he spoke about the product. The product has to be good. If it's all well and good asking people to come to the games and turn up to the games and stuff like that. If the product isn't good, well then it's not going to happen. I think the rule changes are going a long way to helping with the product. If we're being completely honest, the whole of the 2019 championship was probably a write-off, apart from maybe the semi-final and the final, and that was because Liz and Ray just let the games go. And kind of refereed it to their own tune, if you like, and it really contributed. The 2019 final was one of the best games of hurling of the year across all levels, and the semi-final the same, Galway and Cork. So I think the product has to be right for people to go to. And so that applies on a few different levels as well. Even looking at the streams this year now, if Waterford played a couple of games there in Walsh Park and it looked great on the stream, or Galway were playing in Salt Hill and it looked great on the stream, and it looks great on the Sunday game as well then when the clips are going in. But Clare played a home game out in their county training ground, and Tipper playing there in the Rag, and it's just bushes and trees in the background, and it just looks poor, and it's kind of from the point of view of enticing people in, or maybe even enticing bigger sponsors in and stuff like that. Just the whole marketing, the whole packaging of the whole thing needs to improve a little bit, and that's, I suppose, the onus is on the counties there to make sure that they are playing games in the proper county grounds and stuff like that as well, just to add to the overall feeling, the overall experience. But I think from a I suppose a game point of view, it's definitely going in the right direction. See, like, the players are fitter, stronger, faster, more athletically developed, more skillful than they've ever been. Like, the game is in a seriously strong place from a gameplay point of view. I think there's probably still a few rules that can be tweaked. Like, we need still a little more physicality allowed, and just go. I think everybody wants to just go to hurling rules, but yeah, I think like those kind of things will help with participation. Like, if you have a kid watching a game and they see that it's on in Thurles or on in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, they're probably far more likely to want to aim to achieve to play that than if they see that it's on in some back pitch out in Ennis or up in the Rag or whatever. So yeah, little things like that, but it's definitely going the right direction. It's made leaps and bounds even in the last couple of years. There's been massive strides, so there's great credit due to everybody who, I suppose, like, change is hard, and like people who brought the rule changes and stuff in Camogie Association get a bit of a do in the times, but look, the rule changes were good, they were positive, probably need more, but like anything, you have to start with baby steps, so they have taken those baby steps now, so we look for a few bigger steps now in the next couple of years, and hopefully it'll keep moving things in the right direction.
Yeah, and like, you said about the Camogie Association, like they do kind of get a hard doing, like myself included in that. Like, I think that was probably after the Cork Kilkenny kind of disaster class of the All-Ireland final. And that was like, no offense to anyone whatsoever. As you said, it was just a rule thing that had to be changed, because the way those two teams like wanted to go at each other, it was going to be for these left, right, and centre. So you're right there. I suppose another rule that people probably view as a little bit kind of old school and not really kind of modern, I suppose, is kind of the stuff with the Skorts. Now, I know, was it one of the other Dublin Camogie girls, they come out and they were saying, I don't like it, but I have to do it, and it is what it is, a few years ago. Like, what is kind of your opinion kind of on it, and like, do you think like it doesn't really make a difference what they're wearing as long as they're playing well?
Yeah, that's it, I suppose. Look, I don't know, you probably get an insight into the training, and if you're playing challenge matches and stuff, the players will invariably rock on in normal shorts as opposed to the Skorts. So I'd say that probably gives you an insight into it in itself. I know we're lucky in Dublin that the O'Neills, I suppose, have the kind of the Skorts made nearly as shorts, so it's not too bad, but you see some fairly horrendous efforts, and I know the players don't like wearing them and stuff like that. I don't know. It's a lot of it's probably, maybe again, it goes back to the product and stuff like that, and the perception of the game. And it's like, I see ladies footballers walk out in the field, they look the same as their male counterparts, and maybe it would just help with the perception and the marketing and stuff of the game, if they were wearing shorts. But yeah, look, I think that there's probably more fundamental things to sort out in Camogie, like fixture planning and more physicality in the game and stuff like that, before we have to worry about the small things. But I think I'd say if you did a poll of the players, they would probably agree with you that they'd probably prefer to wear the shorts. But yeah, it'll be low down my list here now if it's on the list of all the things we need to look after in the next couple of months, to be honest. But it is an interesting one, though, just purely from a perception point of view, and from again just the overall product, whether it's something that would improve the game. And the players would probably agree with you, yeah. So I think there's probably strong opposition to that from higher up in Camogie, with kind of the older heads there, that they kind of want to keep the tradition. But yeah,
it's not necessarily going to affect how someone plays. Like, look, if people are, we're talking about elite sport here, they can kind of compartmentalize that part, and it's something that they, maybe even if after they finish playing, might want to try and push for that kind of change. And like, it's not the only sport. Like, hockey still wear Skorts and stuff as well. So it's not, I know the Camogie Association gets a hard time for it, but like the women's hockey teams are still wearing Skorts. I think it's more like, if the shorts were allowed, it's more about the availability of like choice. And I know that then kind of brings in that you might have half your team wearing Skorts and half your team wearing shorts and all that kind of thing. But like you're saying, just giving like the parity of like of that kind of decision, and that they can be seen as the same as their male counterparts. And like, I guess some people would see it as a archaic piece, and like, are we moving on from that? Like, we all walk around and wear shorts and trousers and all this kind of thing in day-to-day life, so like, why isn't it brought into sport? Some people are going to feel very strongly about it, and some people really won't care. It depends of obviously the level and how kind of, look, if it's down to equality and that kind of thing, it depends on someone's personal kind of opinion on that. But like, I think there's been a lot done in the last few years, like there's been a lot of push for getting people like in stadiums and at matches and stuff, and like obviously we're going to see like quite a change now with, you know, you were at the games where there was nobody else there, like you were looking up to go. Like I know you know, there's been huge push in getting people to the games, and like there is a completely different cost price when you are purchasing tickets for, say, camogie or ladies football versus you know, men's football and hurling. But what do you think it'll look like for maybe the next year if we can't get people into stadiums, and in relation to making sure that the numbers still stay up? It's obviously easy to sit and watch a stream, and like you don't have to actually get people to stadiums, which is maybe there's a benefit in it. But like, how do we ensure that momentum isn't lost?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one. I think in a kind of a perverse kind of a way, I think camogie has benefited from the whole shutdown. In that, I suppose, like every single game was streamed this year. I think the viewing figures were very good. The lads in Tray would tell you that, Dave O'Shea and the boys that were looking after it, and Killian, commentators and stuff like that, they're really happy with the numbers. Like it had never been easier to watch an inter-county camogie game than it was this year, you know. Like
Ciara McGean was loving it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, so like every single game was nearly streamed, and you could sit down there and you look forward to watching them on a Saturday or a Sunday or whatever. So I mean, that was fantastic, and it's definitely brought the game to a bigger audience. I suppose whether that's going to transfer to bums on seats in time, it's hard to know, really. It's hard to know, I suppose. Yeah, it all depends. It depends on a lot of things. I think ladies football got it right. Like they've got a lot of big attendances at our Ireland finals and stuff like that. But they definitely benefited from Dublin being in the finals and there being a huge push and the population being there. And if you go down through maybe the semi-finals, quarter-finals, or group games in the ladies football, maybe the attendance figures aren't that great. So I think maybe the final figures brush over that a little bit, I think. But yeah, look, it can't be a bad thing that the game has been brought to more and more people, and obviously if there's more coverage of it in the media, like my belief in this thing is it's all about the narrative. Like if whether you like the sport or not, if you know the story, the background of the players, you're going to tune in, you're going to be more interested in it. So like I follow a guy on YouTube, Ben Foster, the cycling GK. And like because of that, and because of watching his content and stuff like that, you'll be keeping an eye out for the Watford scores, and you'll be looking to see the videos and stuff like that. And it's just because you know his background, you know what he's about, you know more about him as an individual. I think the more camogie do around that, and that you get to know the players and get to know their history and stuff like that, the better. So I think like it's very frustrating as well. Sometimes you listen to the RTE commentary and they've clearly made no effort whatsoever to get to know the players, and they're just phoning it in. Compared to, I suppose, the AFLW that was on last Saturday, where like they had 4 commentators, they knew every stat about the players, they knew their background. You know, they weren't saying, "Oh yeah, there's number 13, her brother plays for the Adelaide Crows as well." Like nobody gives a shite who their brother is. You need to focus on the narrative of the player and who are they and what's in front of you. And so I think RTE can be guilty of that at times, just a lazy narrative around the games, and you know. So yeah, it was great actually to hear on TG Cahir. For the Munster under-20 hurling final, they referred to John Devan as Caught Devan's brother. So the nice reversal of roles, you know, as well. So yeah, look, there's an obligation on everybody to just be a bit more proactive and put it out there. And I think the Camogie Association have to push that as well, Joe. They can be quite lazy with it as well. Like they're great around the semi-final and final, and they get all the stats packs out and stuff like that. But it really needs to be done for every game. And so the stats need to be better, the stories about the players need to be better, there needs to be more promotion of the players on their own website, on their own social media and stuff like that. But I think again, it's something that has improved over the last while, but it needs to be a little bit better, you know.
Look, this is just on the back of like social media and stuff like, and this is something that we would obviously be aware of, but like Camogie Association has 12.6 thousand followers on Instagram. Like it's not massive. Do you know what I mean? And like you started this year and you managed to like get traction, gain the following, all that kind of thing. And you're not the official organization for it. Do you know what I mean? You're putting out content, you're connecting with players. And it's just like on that, like after looking here, and the last time they posted was the 12th of December. And like I don't know the resources that they have available. And I'm not saying it's just the Camogie Association. It needs to happen across the board. It needs to happen on club level, that you know, people are treating their female teams the same as their men. And I know there's like a difficulty maybe in some clubs in relation to the fact that not all the associations are, you know, under one umbrella. But like you have to spend the money, I think, to get the results out of it. And like we've seen like good work, like Little have obviously partnered with the LGFA, and Liberty Insurance are working with Camogie Association, and Little Woods Ireland are with Camogie Association as well. But like you're talking about the product and that, and you have to put them out there. And like there is going to be a slight, like a little bit more of a challenge in relation to camogie, in that when they're actually on the pitch, you are wearing helmets. In comparison to, say, the football, you might get to know the players because you actually can identify them on and off the pitch. You can see their faces versus, you know. So there are some of those challenges, but like it's all well and good us identifying them, and it's great that we can talk about them, but they actually have to make that, they have to put them out there, make the people visible, share the stories. And like I know you've said before about some of the like deadly stories that are in camogie, like people just don't know about them. So it's just I think there's just so much going on, and like you have to put the work in. Like the bums and seats thing, to be honest, if I'm quite frank in relation to the bums and seats, and it happened in GA as well, and I don't disregard it, but essentially clubs are getting juniors on the bus for free into Croke Park, and that's how the numbers are going up. Now I don't think it's a bad approach. I think you're getting young athletes there, seeing sport at your top level, and then what you're hoping to do is retain them in the sport, but also, you know, spark their interest in you know, committing to the sport. But it's going to be a long time before we get there, before people actually pay anywhere near what they would pay to go to a hurling final. It's just not. Like you are actually you're essentially giving away free tickets. Like that is the truth of what we do. And I don't disagree with it. You have to put it in front of people first, and you might have to sell the ticket for a $5 or sell it for a $10. But loads of people, they don't even think of that. Like it doesn't come into their mind that's how the numbers are up, you know.
Yeah, and look, I suppose you can forget as well, it's not that long ago when the GA would have been struggling for attendances, and like, you know, that the narrative out there was that the GA was in big trouble and kind of soccer was taking over. And if you look back through attendance figures for like our Ireland semi-finals in hurling and football in the late 80s and stuff like that, they were absolutely dire as well. So like, I suppose it does take time to build the whole thing, you know, and it does start with the product. And I suppose in fairness to Keane and the guys in the Camogie Association, like the communications department, like they don't have that many resources from a people point of view, and they are very much focused on kind of putting out coaching webinars and coach development and stuff like that. So they have a very wide remit, and it's not always easy to do it. It's like, it's nearly chicken and egg thing. It's like, you know, if you don't put out,
where do you invest?
Yeah, where do you invest? You know, and like I suppose they're investing in coaching and investing in that kind of stuff and grassroots as well. So it's not always easy to do it all either, you know. So yeah, I suppose it does kind of come down to maybe then the likes of ourselves, or the lads in the women's hurling now going forward, and yourselves to maybe just push it out there and kind of do a little bit of the donkey work for them as well, you know, which like is, I suppose, all helps as well. But yeah, it's not easy to do it. It's not easy, but it has been a lot better. So it has been a lot better. Like Littlewood's coming on board as the sponsor of the league as well, and they put out a lot of good content and things like that as well. And so because they sponsor the hurling league as well, like the content goes out side by side, and it kind of just it just normalizes the female and male players being on the same media platforms together and things like that, which is a positive for the sport as well.
Is the onus on sponsors, do you think? I mean across
commercially, no. As someone involved in a big commercial organization, it's not, the onus isn't on the sponsors at all. Like it's not the sponsor's obligation to come in and drive the product. You have to drive the product, and then you'll attract the sponsors, you know. Obviously, if a sponsor comes on board and they want to maximize their return on their sponsorship, of course they will wade in behind it and drive it on. But like a sponsor isn't going to turn around and say, "Wow, look at that organization over there is absolutely in the dirt. We'll sponsor them and drive it on." That's not how it works. You have to get to a certain point before the sponsors will lash themselves onto you, you know.
Like in general, you know, I was literally going to say, like, just about the PR stuff. Like, there's one thing like that I know drives all the people in the Irish Times like bonkers, and that's like the lack of like team sheets and score updates and things like that we rely on the county boards like to do for us. Like, you know, on like, say the flip side, say let's talk like from a media like point of view, like. Yeah. You can rely on like certain clubs like AIG do a really good job in terms of like pushing, you know, the stories and the narrative out there about the girls and like what they do and things like that. And then on the flip side, then you have like a team who you want to write like, not like a Cinderella story, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but you want to write like a good, decent thing about them, and you can't find a team sheet for the last like 3 years. And like that's one thing that I always like. If you can't even get a team sheet and a final score out to someone, you're struggling a little bit.
Yeah, no, definitely. And look, I've I've been wanting to lay an old team sheet going into about 5 minutes before throwing myself at the odd time, but I think in the GA the obligation is there that it's one of the rules that you have to release it on the Thursday night before a game, and I don't think it's there in the Camogie. Last year, like just before the throw-in, looking for teams and stuff like that, and you don't know until you rock up to the ground who's playing, who isn't playing, or whatever. So again, like I know the Camogie Association might say, oh, they don't get enough coverage, but I suppose little things like that don't help either. And if you're looking for the coverage, you have to have the basics right. And I think you definitely need the team sheets out. You need to know who's playing, just jersey numbers and stuff like that. That said, I wouldn't be surprised now if we didn't release any team sheets this year.
We'll be literally chasing you. We text you, go, give us that lineup.
It's not like, like I want to know who's playing. I think it's just more like, you want the idea of basically like who you're writing about 1 to 15, that kind of thing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. No, I won't even joking. Yeah, look, it has to be these little things, little press packs and stuff like that. But in fairness, I know Dublin, like some counties are brilliant at it. Like Dublin are class at it, Wexford are class at it. Limerick, Fiona's gone in as the PRO at Limerick this year. She's working on women's hurling with us last year. She'd be very good at it. Clare are class at Tip. A lot of the counties are very good at it. It's just some aren't, and then that just makes it difficult then.
For the full story.
Galway are usually very good at it as well. Yeah, so it's just hard to get the full narrative around it then if you don't have the team sheets and stuff. But definitely something that would help.
Look, it's we're going in the right direction for sure, and it's easy to kind of comment on some of the stuff. Like obviously the reason that her sport is set up and the reason that women's hurling was set up was to raise the profile of women's sport, women's camogie, and what we're hoping that it'll do is bring more eyes to the sport, to the players, share the stories, get more views, and it's essentially like get more sponsorship. Like it's hard. Like I know what you're saying in relation to sponsorship and stuff. Like why would somebody invest in a team if nobody's watching them and if nobody knows about them? I completely get that from a business point of view. Like what do you think we're doing when we're trying to put our sport in front of sponsors? Like we have to show the numbers. I think we have seen a couple of sponsors like take on that position of backing two teams. Like there have been decisions whether it's an inter-county team or whether it's a national team, and look, it goes beyond Ireland. Like, but it's definitely heading in the right direction. It's just it can be frustrating sometimes to see these things and like it seems so simple, but like if resources aren't there, like how do you really push things forward? Like it's sometimes like you're a bit stuck, but
no,
at least
you have to have a really proactive sponsor
right
as well. Like you have to have a really proactive sponsor. Like I'm just very lucky the two teams involved in down in UL. Like Pat McDonough, the Castroy Park, so like he's involved, obviously Supermax Pat McDonough. So he has a history of supporting the ladies football and the camogie teams in Galway as well. So in UL he sponsors all the teams. So it's across the four sports, and the same obviously in Dublin as well. Even already in the short few weeks, like you can see the benefit of having AIG as a sponsor and their class sponsors across the four teams as well. So I think that's definitely the model that teams need to go down. But obviously you need to have a sponsor on board that's proactive and understands the benefits of being involved as well. But we're very lucky with Pat and with AIG and stuff like that. The teams are involved in that. That's the attitude that they have. You
need the teams to work together in that though. That's the thing.
Look, in Dublin,
when it actually comes down to it,
Yeah, but you see anytime there's like a jersey launch with O'Neill's in Dublin, they have players from the four teams.
Yeah.
The AIG launch, they have the players from the four teams or whatever. Yeah. So you can buy simple things like you could buy the Dublin Camogie jersey on the O'Neill's website. That's not always the case with counties as well. And counties are better at that as well. I know you can get the Cork one, Limerick one and stuff like that. You can get the Tip one on Burke Sports and that kind of stuff. So that's improving as well. But look, you very much need a proactive sponsor to wait it. Because look, sometimes the benefits of sponsoring female sports aren't there. You don't get the television coverage, maybe you don't get the media coverage that you deserve. So they almost have to take a leap of faith and drive it on themselves, and to a certain extent as well.
Yeah, know what I mean? And the teams working together, like obviously it's different organisations. So you actually have to make sure within each county or within each club that they're even like on the same page.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily saying now I probably get slated for this, but I'm not necessarily saying that the funding should be split equally. Like there's reasons why teams might get more funding than the others and that kind of thing. So if it's a matter of getting some funding and some support to some of the women's teams just to start to see them move forward in the right direction, investing, something over a couple of years, you might actually start to see your return on investment pay off. It doesn't have to be a massive amount of money. It doesn't,
No, but I suppose there's no obligation on
it. For that.
No, but there's no obligation on a commercial organisation to give anything to anyone. And it comes back to what are the county board going to give back to the sponsor for it. Some of the stuff is out of their control. I mean, like if you go and sponsor the Clare hurlers, you're probably going to be on television 3 or 4 times minimum every year, and it's got a high profile. If you go and manage Clare Camogie, you might be on the television once every 2 years, or maybe once a year, or twice a year. So like straight away from a coverage point of view, like you're going to get twice as much exposure for your brand with the hurlers as you are the Camogie. There's nothing the Clare Camogie board can do about that. But what they can control, I suppose, is what you spoke about there, is putting the players out there, telling the story about the players, pushing the brand on everything, and working with the sponsor to kind of to get more exposure for the brand and giving them bang for their buck. But yeah, look, the equal funding thing, look, like it's a bit naive to think that that's ever going to happen. Like it's a commercial organization.
Yeah.
You're going to direct their money towards where they're going to get the most exposure. They're not charities, So so like it's very much the organizations have to work with the sponsors to try and maximize the exposure and make it more attractive for them and that kind of thing as well.
Yeah.
Look, that's not again same thing in the GA. Like it's not like sometimes the skill set isn't within the county board to go and negotiate these deals. I think somebody had said there lately that even for GAA that there should be a central person in Croke Park that goes and works with the smaller counties and shows them how to maximize their commercial income and how to market themselves to potential sponsors and things like that. And it could be a really good idea for Camogie as well. Because look, I've seen some of the Camogie sponsorship deals, and again, I've been really lucky in the counties I've been in. Like the Woodlands were class sponsors with Limerick and gave so much, and again with the teams they're involved in at the moment. But like some of the deals you hear of are like a club team would get it off the local pub, and these teams have their names on the front of jerseys and stuff like that. And sometimes a lot of the time it's just the people within the county board don't know how to value their brand. They don't know how to pitch their brand. They don't know what it's worth. They don't know how to make a commercial pitch to a potential sponsor and stuff like that. So I think maybe there might be more help needed from the central organisation in Croke Park to actually go and help these counties, I suppose, maximize their revenues from a commercial point of view as well.
Yeah, no, it's a totally fair point. And like I think in relation to the product, if we're talking about it as a product again, is that like you also have to help the athletes, and you have to like build that confidence within the athletes to make them a bit more marketable and all that. So it's about training up the people in the respective positions to get the results that you want. But look, I mean, off the back of the conversation, something that I'd say if anybody's that's listening and wants to talk to us in relation to what's going on in their county or what's going on in their clubs, like we certainly are happy to talk to different people. And if you just have stories that you want to share, we certainly will talk to people and share what we can. Like we just want to see everything moving forward in camogie and in women's sport in general. But I think we'll wrap it up there.
If you can afford Joanne, you can surely afford to sponsor a county camogie team. Surely.
We can get me and Joanne like just written across like camogie teams in general.
Exactly. That's it. Brandon opportunity.
Look, we try and help where we can. So look, in relation to coverage, is something that we're definitely trying to do. So look, we'll get people on. Maybe there's a few people from the smaller counties that all want to hop on a panel discussion, even talk to us about the trouble or the hurdles that they face in relation to getting sponsorship, getting recognition, getting the players involved. Even I know sometimes it can be hard to pull numbers in as well. So I think that's it for me today. I have all my questions done. Joanne, have you any more questions?
Yeah, no, just a really insightful conversation, Adrian. I really do appreciate you taking the time out to talk to myself and me of, especially in our infancy of our podcast. But no, we had an absolute blast talking to you and really appreciate you giving up your time.
No problem at all. Happy to do it.
Thanks a million.